Welcome to the debate. In engineering, you run a stress test by throwing a complex machine at an immovable object, right?
Yeah, just to see exactly where the whole thing breaks.
Exactly. And, well, we just saw that happen. England's highly resourced squad completely shattered against Ghana's defensive low block in that 0-0 stalemate.
It really is kind of the defining puzzle of modern football, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You have an elite team rendered totally inert by an opponent who is, frankly, perfectly happy to concede possession and just defend the edge of their own penalty area for 90 minutes.
Right. And, when you hit that wall, someone has to figure a way over it. So I'm going to argue this was a masterclass in managerial failure by Thomas Tuchel.
And I'm taking the other side, because I believe the fault lies entirely in the psychological paralysis of the players on the pitch. Well, my position is that breaking a low block is, at its core, a mathematical and spatial problem. You have to actively try to solve it from the touchline.
Okay, but you can't just solve it on a whiteboard.
But you have to provide the equations. Alan Pardew made a brilliant point after the match. He said, it's not just the players who have to ask questions of the opposition. The coaches do too.
Right, but...
And Tuchel and his staff, they just didn't ask Ghana anything they couldn't answer. We needed structural adjustments, things that mathematically forced the opposition to break their shape. Instead, we got, complete touchline paralysis.
The issue with blaming the touchline, though, is that it ignores what the guys in the shirts were actually doing out there.
How so?
My stance is that the most sophisticated tactical blueprint on Girth won't overcome mental freeze, You cannot execute structural changes when the players default to possession for possession's sake.
They were definitely holding on to the ball a lot.
Exactly. We saw endless sequences of fullbacks playing safe, square passes, and just standing still. Nobody wanted to lose the ball trying something dangerous.
Yeah, it was tough to watch.
Right? When your players turn the match into a passive exercise in ball retention, the manager's tactics are effectively neutralized by his own team's timidity.
But we can't just look at that timidity in a vacuum, It's the manager's job to manage that psychology.
I don't know. You have to look at the specific mental hurdles on the pitch. Take Anthony Gordon, for example.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about Gordon.
He had a magnificent cameo against Costa Rica, but starting against Ghana, he tightened up. He's dealing with the immense pressure of that £70 million surprise move to Barcelona.
It is a massive price tag.
It is. And you could see the imposter syndrome playing out in real time. He felt the absolute need to justify that price tag by, just not making a mistake. Compare that to Marcus Rashford, who's hungry to rebuild his career. Gordon was completely paralyzed. You can't tactically tweak a player out of his own head.
See, I disagree with that. I really do. When a player like Gordon is freezing up, you don't just yell at him to play better. You change the formation to bring a teammate closer to him.
To hold his hand?
No, to reduce the distance of his passes. It eases his cognitive load. Think of a manager like a spotter in a weightlifting gym.
Okay, I'm listening.
The player has to lift the weight, right? The execution is absolutely on them. But when Gordon's form starts failing under the pressure of the moment, the manager has to step in. He has to adjust his grip or change the weight. Tuchel just stood there and watched his player get crushed.
Okay, I like the spotter analogy, but let's look at the actual weights on the bar here. You talk about changing the structure to help him, but the players weren't even using the structure they already had.
What do you mean?
Well, Gordon wasn't helped by the fact that he was playing with fullbacks who flat out refused to overlap. Jed Spence overlapped effectively exactly once.
Yeah, that was frustrating.
And Mickey Riley wasn't offering dynamic support either. It wasn't until Bukayo Saka came off the bench that England finally had a player willing to run past a defender. That is a baseline execution issue.
Right, but
a spotter can't lift the bar for you if you refuse to push.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. I know everyone listening at home was screaming at their televisions for Tuchel to bring on someone like Ivan Toney.
Or wondering why Saka didn't just start in the first place.
Exactly. But let's look at the underlying math of why the structure failed. If you switch to a diamond midfield, for example, you're mathematically overloading the center of the pitch.
Sure.
And that forces Ghana's wide defenders to pinch inward to help out, which suddenly creates the very space on the wings that Gordon and Spence needed to exploit. It's simple geometry.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why.
But wait, but Tuchel didn't even bring the right geometric tools to the tournament. Leaving Cole Palmer and Trent Alexander-Arnold at home was a fatal error.
Oh, you think they would have fixed this?
Yes, because we lacked line-breaking diagonal passes. Scientifically, those are the most effective way to shift a low-block defense from side to side and stretch those gaps.
You're assuming Palmer or Alexander-Arnold wouldn't have succumbed to the exact same sideways passing contagion that infected the rest of the squad.
They're different profiles of players, though.
But when the pressure hits, players revert to safety. Even when a tactical opportunity presented itself, the execution was abysmal. Look at the set pieces.
Wait, the set pieces are the ultimate proof of coaching stubbornness.
How?
Because England relied entirely on predictable, right-footed outswingers from Declan Rice, every single time.
They were good deliveries, though.
But an outswinging corner against a deep block is statistically the easiest ball to defend. The defender's momentum is already moving forward to attack and clear it.
Okay, fair point on the physics there.
So why not a short corner? A short corner completely breaks a low block's cardinal rule. It forces them to step out of their rigid defensive line to engage the ball. Banging on the same tactical door when the deadbolt is locked is a failure of coaching imagination.
That is a fantastic point about the mechanics of outswingers, but let's look at who is actually clearing those balls.
Ghana's defense.
Specifically, Jordan. Rice hit several excellent deliveries. And who were the English attackers losing those headers to? Jordan, a player who is naturally a center forward for Crystal Palace.
Well, yeah.
He was playing completely out of position at center back for Ghana. He is not known for his defensive aerial dominance, yet the English forwards allowed him to command the penalty area.
That is definitely a bad look for the forwards.
Exactly. The manager can draw up all the brilliant short corner routines he wants, but if his players refuse to physically assert themselves against a makeshift center back, the whiteboard is useless. Execution must precede tactics.
It always comes back to the interaction between the two, doesn't it? Look, to summarize my stance, yes, players have to perform.
Right.
But when a team sinks into passive, possession-heavy paralysis, it is the fundamental duty of the coaching staff to inject chaos. Whether that's changing to a diamond to manipulate the geometry or altering set-piece routines to pull defenders out of position, the touchline has to force a breakthrough.
And my position is that international football is ultimately a player's medium. When individuals are paralyzed by the pressure of massive transfers, or when they default to safe, square passes instead of taking calculated risks,
Well, no amount of touchline maneuvering can manufacture a goal out of thin air. You simply cannot out-tactic fear.
We can both agree on one thing, though. This defensive strategy, keeping it tight and playing for penalties, is the ultimate hurdle of the modern game.
Oh, 100%.
Looking ahead to a potential knockout clash with a team like Mexico, overcoming it will require both braver tactical interventions from the bench and significantly braver individual risk-taking on the pitch.
Spot on. If the system remains perfectly balanced between an overly cautious manager and a psychologically burdened squad, the result will always be stagnation.
It really is the ultimate test of that complex interplay between a manager's whiteboard and a player's mindset.
Absolutely.
When the margins are this incredibly tight, which factor truly tips the scales? The answer might determine who lifts the trophy and who goes home early.
It's going to be fascinating to watch.
There is certainly far more nuance to explore in how these teams evolve, but for now we leave you to consider where the true fault line lies. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.